yesterday afternoon, I had the privilege to go to the Houses of Commons, to Parliament in London. Went up there, and yeah, it was a really different experience for me to go and talk about how you can help new businesses and small businesses and keep the high street going. We had a good chat. I got my insight into politics.
What do we really have to be proud of in the UK at the moment? Sadly, very little. Just look at our leaders today. Slippery Starmer, the most gutless man in Britain, refusing to speak to the farmers whose lives and livelihoods he is trying to destroy.
It must be really incredible to be part of building, I mean actually here not just building houses, but building a community.
Just talk to us! Talk to us! Just talk to us!
Just talk to us. Just talk to us. But he refused. Off he went in his blacked out vehicle, no doubt on the way to a private helicopter or a private jet. Didn't that remind you of those scenes after the Southport massacre? Meanwhile, after literally months of warning, the British Bashing Corporation have caught up to the fact we have a treacherous, financially illiterate liar in charge of our finances in Rachel from Accounts. Now, I read their investigation today. It actually included facts reported here on Outspoken from Kev Gillett about her being an expenses cheat months ago. But I think Calvin McKenzie summed up the situation well by posting on X, "So Rachel from Accounts has turned into Rachel the expense fiddler. Even worse, she has Starmer's full faith in her. Who would want that?" And Reform's Rupert Lowe added, "Reeves must resign. Even the BBC is now reporting her dishonesty. An arrogant and incompetent woman who is a danger to the British economy." But the Westminster elite and the political class, they'll shrug this one off too. She is one of their women. So is there any surprise with these uninspiring clowns leading us that our youth, our future, have lost all faith in our United Kingdom? With bombshell new polling revealing a dramatic drop in young people who can even say they're patriotic, let alone prepared to fight for their country. Listen to how Douglas Murray put it.
Only 11% of young people be willing to fight for their country. I would have said it's pretty obvious. If you've been told all your life that your country is rotten, absolutely everything about it is terrible, no redeeming features at all, that it's all racist, based in slavery and colonialism and so on, why on earth would you fight for it? Why would you risk laying down your life for a country that's rotten? And so this stuff actually has very, very significant effects.
But Nigel Farage believes there is a solution close to home. Both him and Reform UK.
So only 41% of 18 to 27-year-olds are proud to be British. That's down from 80% in 2004. Why? What's going on? Look, I get it. If you're young in this country, you've been given a rotten deal. Lockdowns, it's really tough to buy a house. The cost of living is impossible. I know it's broken Britain, but I think there's something deeper here. I think the education system at school, and particularly at university, is willfully poisoning the minds of all of our young people about who we are as a country, our history, what we stand for. I think the whole thing is an absolute disgrace. And I promise you, if and when Reform win the next election, we're going to teach young people that this actually has been a very great country, and it will be great again.
And Farage was actually backed up overnight by his internal rival for the party's leadership, Rupert Lowe.
The tragedy is that a very small percentage of the British population actually elected and gave the Labour Party a huge majority.
But they
and I think some of that,
a lot of things.
Some was the fact that some people didn't vote, Harry.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Gen Zs and a lot of the younger people didn't vote. They're the people who are now hopefully they are signing up for reform in big numbers. And credit to Nigel, a lot of his TikTok stuff, a lot of stuff, in the jungle.
Yes.
Mental
images we can all try and forget. That.
I think it's made him, if you like, more contemporary than a lot of people in Parliament.
But then the madness keeps ensuing. Like, have you heard about this? The Nigerian woman who tried and failed 8 times to secure asylum in Britain and has now been granted that right to stay after joining a terrorist organisation simply to boost her claim. It makes me sick. And when I see the terror on the streets of Germany again today, I fear that's where we will be in 4 years, if not sooner. So you see what's happening in Germany with the AfD, and not surprisingly, the political climate in the UK is heading in one direction. Reform UK, now so popular that they are setting up a specialist defections unit to deal with the volume of Labour and Tory politicians wanting to join the movement. So the chairman, Zia Youssef, explained it like this. Reform is experiencing a surge in those attempting to defect to our party. Some are cynical careerists who just want to save their bacon, but some are genuinely decent elected officials who feel their party has betrayed their values. And now we have a dedicated team to deal with this demand and ensure only the latter make it through. Lifeboats are limited. And there'll be no lifeboat, for example, for former Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who Youssef earlier this week claimed should be jailed for COVID crimes. So this revolution will potentially see a whole load of extraordinary citizens outside of Parliament become decision makers. So Reform are likely, I am told, to select Ant Middleton, really good guy, former SAS man, big life experience, to run for the party against Sadiq Khan in the London mayoralty. And now, maybe even Mr. Bosch himself, Tom Skinner, will become an MP after going public with Reform in Parliament yesterday. So look at the post. Rupert Lowe wrote, superb to welcome some proper Essex lads to Westminster to talk politics and the importance of the country's small businesses. Tom Skinner is a real example for youngsters, hardworking, decent, and a right laugh. Hopefully he's here alongside me in 2029. Bosh. And to be honest, this is the sort of young bloke I would want to see in Parliament.
Now, yesterday afternoon, I had the privilege to go to the Houses of Commons, to Parliament in London. Went up there, and it was a really different experience for me to go and talk about how you can help new businesses and small businesses and keep the high street going. We had a good chat. I got my insight into politics, and but today we're back on the market. We're back grafting. The vans are out today. It's going to be a busy day. I just want to say one thing: whatever you are doing, always do your best. That's all you can do. Keep on moving forward, keep on giving it your all, and believe in yourself, because I promise you now, you are so much stronger than you can ever imagine. If you're feeling like you're getting pulled back, you're feeling disheartened, just don't give up. Just keep moving and keep doing you, and you will get there. I promise you that. So, have a great day. Enjoy the Thursday. I'm going to smash this down, me. Bosh.
Yes, Tom Skinner. That is what we need, right? Inspiring, positive, very connected, and all about hard work and being self-made and not being embarrassed about success. The Gen Z broadcaster and political strategist Charlie Downs described that as an extremely powerful crossover. And he joins me now on the Superstar panel alongside Brogan Garrit-Smith, host of the brilliant Getting There podcast. But first, sleep quality declines in people as early as 30. When you were young, your body was producing a good amount of sleep-regulating hormones. As you get older, your body's ability to produce those hormones decline, making it harder to fall asleep and stay asleep. Now, I tried everything. to help improve my sleep, right? Like not eating or working out 3 hours before bed, banning blue light devices, loads of unnatural products, but nothing has moved the needle like Evening Being by Verso. After 3 years of perfecting the formula, they created a melatonin-free drink with clinically studied, patented ingredients. It's formulated to calm an active mind, help you fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer, and improve deep and REM sleep, all without creating dependencies or causing morning grogginess. Now, I actually look forward to drinking Evening Being every night, not only because it helps me fall asleep faster without having to get up in the middle of the night, but I wake up easier too, and it tastes good. It's become my new nightcap. It's also great if you're vegan or on the keto diet. So click the link in the show description or head on over to evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15% on your first order. Try Evening Being tonight and wake up feeling refreshed tomorrow. That address, evening.ver.so/outspoken and use the coupon code outspoken at checkout to save 15%. But now, back to the show. And Charlie has actually been writing on this issue for the Daily Mail this week in a column headlined "Britain's in Decline. Democracy has lost its way. Yes, many would squeal, but it's no wonder so many of my generation believe it's time for a dictator." So Charlie Downs, that was described as a provocative view. But actually, it is no surprise, is it, when we look at the state of our leadership and the state of trust in politics, I think, becoming smashed after the Uni Party let us down time and again.
Yeah, well, it's interesting over the last couple of weeks, all this data that's come out about Gen Z, my peers. I'm a 23 years old, child of the 21st century. And to me, it's really no surprise because, I'm of that age group and I echo a lot of the sentiments that have been reflected in this data. To address the democracy point, I think the crucial thing to understand is that this is an expression of exasperation. This is an expression of a generation of people who've grown up essentially being governed by the same types of people for our entire lives. I only voted for the first time in 2019, but I remember kind of always thinking that all the politicians kind of look the same. And that's maybe a superficial view. But then when you really look into it, we elect at an election, we vote in and out the public facing element of government, the actual figureheads. But really the direction of travel, the actual sort of doctrine that is being followed, the ideology that is being brought into existence remains the same, regardless of who we vote in. And that, I think, is, a significant reason for that is we employ over 500,000 people in the civil service who we don't elect, whose names we don't know, whose political views I think we can kind of guess. And so, there is a sense that democracy is kind of a sham. It's a theatrical production. It's performative. Whether it's the question time, whether it's prime minister's questions, whether it's debates on talk shows or whatever else, all of it is it's for the crowd. And the actual business of government is conducted by this absolutely sprawling, incomprehensibly large state that we don't really seem to have any control over. And it even goes beyond that, because there is a sense that all of the various institutions of power in our society, whether that's the schools or the universities or the media or the entertainment industry or the corporations or the HR departments within those corporations or the NGOs, and the list goes on, they all seem to be marching to the same kind of tune, right? They all seem to agree fundamentally on what a good world looks like. And this is one where, things like mass immigration are prioritized, net zero, neoliberal economics, social egalitarianism. If you were to go into, an Amazon HR department, for instance, and list off what some might regard as, radical left-wing opinions, the HR department would agree with you. And the interesting thing is those kinds of opinions, whether it is about, the LGBT stuff or the trans stuff or the BLM stuff or the climate stuff, these have been bought, they've been packaged and sold as radical. But actually, these are the opinions of the ruling class. And so I think a lot of young people have been hoodwinked into thinking they're fighting the power when actually they are acting as the foot soldiers of power. And so to then bring it to this second issue of pride in Britain, It's those same people who think that they're fighting the power. They think that they're being rebellious by saying that they are not proud to be British, that they don't want to fight for Britain. They are buying into an ideology that has been delivered to them by power, by the ruling class. And it's in the interest, I think, of our current ruling class to kind of sever these ties of sentimental attachment to things like nation, things like community, things like family, because that makes it easier to control people fundamentally. If people are just deracinated economic units that can be moved around like pieces on a chessboard and replaced like cogs in a machine, well, it becomes a lot easier to manage the economy, among other things. And so I think that we are going to see in the coming years a real shift in the way that Gen Z is speaking. I actually like to think of myself as being quite an early expression of what will soon be a far more widespread phenomenon, because I am what I would, I describe myself as an authentic right-winger, right? I'm not up for any of the sort of social progressive stuff, but at the same time, I'm not up for capitalism either. I'm not a Thatcherite. I don't believe that the free market is the solution to everything, because I think the purpose of the economy is not growth, as Starmer and Reeves like to talk about. It's not profit, as Thatcherites like to talk about, but it's actually security. Because what young people need is a sense of stability, a sense of security, a sense of rootedness, and out of that will come a sense of identity. Because we are, generation identity. We are the ones that have been sucked in to the kind of left-wing identity politics that has been sold to us from, really a very young age. And the reason for that is because those traditional identities to be found in family, nation, community, work, and all the rest of it, they've been taken, a hammer has been taken to them because they were described as being oppressive and somehow, keeping people down. But actually, I think we're going to see a return to those kinds of identities, because actually that is where the substance of life, the real nourishing fabric of human existence, is to be found.
Absolutely fascinating hearing about that change within your generation. Certainly, I think we could see it in the US with the election of Donald Trump, and a big change happening there, just in terms as well and of what's viewed as cool. And actually what people sort of think and aspire to be. And I'd say people much more in America now, young people in America, much more aspire to be part of that Trump generation rather than one of the weird woke-topians with rainbow hair, pierced noses in New York. But Brogan Garrit-Smith, so great to have you on Outspoken, by the way. I have, of course, appeared on your brilliant Get In There podcast before. And what's so interesting to me about this is that your podcast is part of that media revolution that is happening, long form, in-depth interviews, not controlled by the mainstream media. And you have platform people from across the political spectrum, but of course there are people who are turned off by that, young people.
Yeah, so what I found, and when I started in the podcasting space, that, there was in fact an unwritten rule. There are subjects you cannot broach, there are people you can't talk to, and there are questions that you simply cannot ask. And I wanted to change that because it seems like the view is all of a sudden, if you speak to these people, Dan, you align with their views and beliefs. And I wanted to go back, to the days when we used to be able to have a conversation, without killing each other, to agree to disagree. And I believe that there's beauty in diversity. So for me, this platform has always been about creating a safe space and hearing from people from all walks of life and understanding where they are in their journey and getting there.
Yes, and that includes Katie Hopkins, which we're coming to. That includes Tommy Robinson, who we're coming to.
Alive.
It's interesting.
And these conversations are so important, Dan.
Well, of course they are. But I do find it fascinating. I mean, I was recording earlier this week Francis Foster's podcast, and he's one half of Trigonometry, the Trigonometry guys. He does it with Konstantin Kisin. And he said to me before we were recording, there are some people some of his friends, he's in the comedy world, who are disgusted with him for having me on. And I just find it so astonishing because I'm like, I don't view myself as extreme in any way, but it does show you, I guess, the disconnect that there is between the world of woke and ordinary people in the UK. Charlie, can I just ask you about the couple of big stories of the day that we kicked off with? Rachel Reeves, look, we've all known that she has been this CV cheat, this liar. It is interesting, though, when the state propaganda outfit, the British Bashing Corporation, even decide that this is a relevant story, reporting the allegations from Kev Gillett, which I first carried on the show weeks and weeks ago. But they are disturbing because it suggests that Rachel Reeves is someone who used other people's money to give herself a very plush life, to spend money on alcohol, to spend money on posh dinners, to spend money on gifts. I mean, this is not the person we want in charge of our money, is it?
Well, I mean, the first thing to say, I think, is it doesn't appear that Rachel Reeves has done anything illegal. It would be a lot more cut and dry if she had. But it's just one of these stories that stinks of sleaze, I think. And I think it's no secret that I think the general perception of Rachel Reeves is that she is somebody who is genuinely unintelligent, somebody who would be more accustomed, more suited to a role as an assistant manager in the local branch of a bank, or perhaps not even that. I mean, if her CV is to be believed, she was an economist in the Bank of England, although that has since proven to be, well, at least a kind of embellishment of the truth. But this story about her using her expenses to finance a very lavish life, I think is really interesting, because I think what it reveals is there are people in the political discourse who make the mistake of believing our elites in Britain, and whether this is the Conservative Party or the Labour Party or whichever party happens to be in power at the moment, there is the mistake that made that these people are somehow very kind of well cultivated ideologues, that Rachel Reeves is a socialist or a communist. I mean, she did hang a photograph of one of the founding members of the British Communist Party in the Treasury office, but that's beside the point. Rachel Reeves is an old school scammer, I think. I think that's the best way to think about her. She's not some high-minded left-wing ideologue. She's just somebody who has found her way into a position of power, whether that's through, greasing the right palms, saying the right things, kissing the right backsides and whatever else, and perhaps a little bit of merit. Let's be charitable here. And she's found herself in this position where she has access to huge amounts of capital, huge amounts of authority. She gets probably invited to very nice dinner parties. She is recognized now the world over. And I think that to somebody like her, that's very, very exciting. And, just given this story, this expenses story, I mean, this is no surprise that someone like her has sort of found herself in this kind of position, because it's not like she has some grand ideological project that she's seeking to bring into existence. It seems like she just wants to live a lavish life. And I think that that's actually the case for more politicians than we would care to think about. I think it's actually too optimistic to think that our leaders are these politically motivated ideologues who want to bring a certain vision of the world into existence. I think it's more accurate to think of them as basically opportunists. And the interesting thing, actually, about my article that you brought up already about democracy and Gen Z's lack of faith in democracy is, quite frankly, democracy selects for these people. And this is what's interesting, is we're told democracy, to quote Churchill, is the worst system of government apart from all the others. But actually, if you look at the caliber of leader that democracy tends to select for, it's those people who are just more effective at lying, because they're able to more effectively tell the electorate what they want to hear. And so somebody like Rachel Reeves, who is unscrupulous, who does come across as a little bit of a scammer, she's actually almost she's like the perfect example of a democratically elected politician. And I'm not saying that we need to do away with democracy, to be clear. I do think that we can solve our problems through democracy, because I think America and what's going on there is a prime example of that. But yes, I just think it's interesting how the entire ruling class of Britain now, at this point, is so atrophied, so low caliber. Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, Angela Rayner, David Lammy, right? These are the people who are leading Britain, representing Britain on the world stage. It's embarrassing. But that's what you get.
Well, we do for now, but the revolution is coming. Let me show you this new poll, literally just released in the last hour. This is the biggest lead for Reform UK yet. 29% of the vote, ahead of Labour with 23%, Conservatives with 21%. So the revolution is coming. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.